Hi there, it's me, Liz, pumpkins in hand, here for my live on the Iron Orchid Designs page. As is often the case, I'm a little, scattered and wondering what happened to all the room I thought I had in my space. Hello, Kathy. I'm going to move this up. And I'm going to keep doing a little bit of housekeeping for the video here. I have a second camera right here that I have invited to watch the details of what we'll be doing. So I'm going to ask you to be patient with me here. Hello, viewers. And I'll show you some of the behind the scenes, right? That when we do a live video, little things to take care of that sometimes I'm like, oh, I didn't do that yet. So my name is Liz. I am with Liza Jane Designs. Hi, Robin. I'm with Liza Jane Designs in Afton, Minnesota. One of the things I want to do so we don't have interference is I'm going to hook my second camera, my phone, up to these AirPods so that the sound goes there and we don't get all that awful interference. So we're connected to that. I invited myself as a guest. So my second camera will be a guest here in the studio. Oh, it just showed up, turning down some volume. I apologize, you guys, that this wasn't already in advance, but here is my second video. You see the top of my head where I injured myself last week with falling pictures. The goose bump on my head is gone. I'm going to turn this camera down to the workspace. And then I'm going to go ahead and make one of those small. So here's me big while I talk to you about some of the things we're going to do today. I have been inspired by many of the IOD stockists I've seen and just regular IOD lovers in the tribe. I've been making pumpkins, trying out different ways. So some of the pumpkins I've completed already. This is how it started out, right? It was a Dollar Tree pumpkin, that very bright orange. I painted them in more muted shades of blue because I like that. I used some air dry clay, the sunflower on top for these pumpkins. I use little sticks. I can put this down here. Let me switch it over to make this big. So again, we're going to be playing with pumpkins today, different ways. I'm just kind of showing you ones I've already completed and giving a little story on how they came about. So Dollar Tree pumpkin painted with, I used some salt wash to give texture here, any kind of a paint additive you could put, and air dry clay so that I could shape this is a sunflower to the shape of the pumpkin, a little stick added. So that's a pumpkin and one way to do them. Here's a second pumpkin done the same way with a different version of the sunflowers and another dragonfly. I love dragonflies. What I've heard that they symbolize is ready for whatever comes next. So I think that's a good way to be, not clinging on to what was, but ready for what's gonna be. Oh, thanks, Kathy. And hello, Lori and Doris. It's so great to see everyone on. And we're ready for fall, right? It is officially fall. This is a pumpkin I did with decoupage paper. So that is another option, is decoupaging your pumpkins. And I have this pumpkin. So let me show you some of my options here. I've got this guy who's squat and very bright orange that came from the Dollar Tree. I have some of these little guys that I picked up at Target. And then a bigger version of the same pumpkin. He looked like this, and I painted him with an off-white paint. So he's going to be ready for a transfer pretty soon. I am going to play around today with doing transfers and doing paint inlays, maybe painting a paintable transfer. So to get this guy ready for a paint inlay, I'm going to start painting him this sweet shade of minty green. So I'm going to hopefully be able to get this open. And if I can't, you know, we might have to change up and use a different color. The sun is shining brightly here in Afton, Minnesota today, but when I woke up, it was 33 degrees. I'm not quite ready for that, but the day is supposed to warm up into the upper 50s. Sometimes you choose your color by which container opens. We're going to go with the blue pumpkin because I can't get the greens open at the moment. If that happens to you and you're using a chalky style paint, usually running it under some hot water works, but I don't have any handy in the studio. So we're just going to start painting a single coat of this, I think, really pretty light blue chalk style paint. I might as well hit some of my stem with it. And we're just going to paint him, put one coat on. And while that dries, we'll do some work on other pumpkins that are in various states. Hey, Kay, you're from Wisconsin, and Mary from Chicago. You guys are not so far away. Wisconsin, you know, like Minnesota, it's a big state, and there's all sorts of, you could be super close by me. I'm, as the crow flies, I'm only about a half a mile from Wisconsin across the St. Croix River. If I went there on my boat, I could be there. Well, if I had a boat, I could be there quickly. But Wisconsin does go on and on. If you're in my area ever, you guys from the Midwest, please stop in. Oh, I see someone from Tallahassee, Maria, thinking about all of you folks in Florida today. Scary how that storm is just growing in intensity and changing its path. So just reminds us we're not in control of everything. So it's barreling down, and I hope anyone who is in its path has prepped as best they can. You definitely are in my thoughts, and I think most everyone in the country is thinking of you today. All right, I got this guy painted. That's a pretty good first coat. And I'm setting him down on, this is a vinyl. I'm going to put it right on top of the paint cover. Less touching. This guy's ready for some transfers. Before I go there, I want to get the next guy ready for also transfers, but I have different plans for different kinds of transfers. I'm going to paint this one off-white. So let me just grab I use all of my IOD packaging for surfaces that I can paint on and ways, you know, to protect my paint, my table surfaces and that kind of thing. Whoops, I think that's not paint. That's a sealer. So here's the paint I want. It's an off-white. There we go. Kind of an off-white paint color here. A little bit different from the other pumpkin. This white, I don't know, this white is a cooler white. So we're just going to put this cooler white chalk style paint on what I thought was a paper mache pumpkin, but it turns out these pumpkins from Target, they're styrofoam like the ones from the Dollar Tree. They're bigger and they're shaped differently. They are styrofoam. They've just been covered with strips of brown craft paper. So that tells us, right? We could also, you know, take our Dollar Tree ones and cover them with craft paper. Yes. Hey, Maria, you're on the Gulf Coast of Florida. And that, last I checked, was the area that we're really praying for, really concerned about the coastal areas. And you guys, you just have been getting the brunt of things. It's good for me when I tend to be anxious and worry a lot about all sorts of things. But my antidote to that is creativity and crafting and staying busy with positive things like creation and putting beauty in the world in whatever small way that I can. So I hope, Maria, and I hope you're stocked up with water to last you through the storm, that maybe you have a generator or some solar power, and that you've got your craft supplies so they can help you keep your mind off some of your worries here. I'm not going to paint the bottom of this. Where's my camera? I'll paint it later, but I just want to set it down to be able to dry. So there's that guy. I think he's in pretty good shape. This stem, I'm going to add some different color to later. I've got water and a rag. So just spritzing my hand and wiping my hands on a rag here. I'll get this wet one out of the way a bit. And we're going to bring our already dry off-white. This is a much warmer white. And we'll flip that so I don't get wet paint on the bottom. And I thought what I would start out with on this guy today is something that I was inspired by Karen Berg of Redoux, Redoux. Karen's in Northern California. She's one of my favorite people and favorite stockists. And I sort of gently cussed her out the other day for providing such tempting inspiration that there, now I've cut it in a good place. I said, dang you creative posters with all your great ideas. Karen, if you look over here, Karen used the Winter Song wreath, parts of the Winter Song wreath transfer on a pumpkin like this, and then painted it. Now, I am not sure what Karen used to paint. I'm going to try different things. So what I am doing right here that you probably cannot see, but you'll see in a minute, I'm cutting out the corner piece of Winter Song. And we're going to place this on this pumpkin. So here's what I'm going to do. I know that I want to cut this apart a bit to fit on my pumpkin. So I'm cutting out around the flower. I'm going to leave that black line as best I can and cut off these fun embellishments. These guys, the kind of line drawings that are there. I don't think I'll cut those, but I would like this guy to kind of go around the stem. So different ways to do that. I don't want to waste because I'll put some of what's on the other side. So I'm going to, I don't know, this is dangerous, but I'm just going to estimate what I think, because I know I can piece it back together too. So I'm cutting off a bit of that, and I'm going to put this up. I'm going to put some more snips in here, and I'm kind of deconstructing and reconstructing this flower around the pumpkin stem. So did you see how I did that to make it so I can get a lot of good pumpkin or flower on there? I'm going to put this piece up to the stem. And I know I have a tool here because I set them all up ahead of time. I've got, here it is. So I have my rubbing stick, and see if I can talk to you and do this at the same time. We're gonna just apply this part of the flower up to the stem and just rub. I did not seal this pumpkin yet. Often sealing would make the transfers come off better, but you know, sometimes in the world of live videos, we have to go with good enough, right? We have to make things work in the time we've got. So that's what we're doing. I'm using an unsealed, but it's coming out and it's transferring on there. So I have this piece, and now it came off of here. I want to round that around, and it's just going to go on there a bit better. So let's make that happen. I'm being careful not to touch where the ink is printed on the back. And for now, I am just letting touch the areas that I'm going to rub immediately. So sometimes working on these uneven surfaces gives us extra challenges, but we're up for it, right? That's why we have creative muscles, so that we can pivot on the spot and make things work for us. We're excellent pivoters. So here we go, just rubbing. I keep coming off camera. I apologize. I'm watching here. So this guy, you know, a very nice thing with IOD transfers in general, this transfer in particular is really the only thing that is transferring is this black line. So it's leaving this area as the chalky paint background, which is going to make it easier. I'm going to try to use watercolor on this, and watercolor tends to like a porous, chalky background like this paint. So that's going to be my first my first attempt at colorizing this is going to be trying with watercolor. Other options, if you're not a fan of watercolor, or if you don't have any around, you can use your chalk paint. You could use watercolor crayons. If you want it transparent or translucent, you can really make your chalky paint very watery. So here I'm coming around and just shaping this to the pumpkin's bumps and valleys, and lining it up over here where we put on that first piece. And I'm not going to lie to you, this is a little bit tricky, but I know you can do it. If you wanted to, you could make use of painter's tape to hold down parts. I kind of don't want to do that here because I'm afraid I would tape it in the wrong place. So I'm just letting the printed transfer make contact where I'm going to rub it, and I'm leaving the rest of it a little bit loose. I'm going to try to flip this on its side, see if you can still see. It is tricky. We've got ridges and just, you know, the rounded surface of it makes it more of a challenge. Like I said, I know that we're up to that challenge, right? So we're coming around with this paintable wreath piece transfer. I wonder if switching, so the smaller, this is not Astoria. Hi, Shannon. Well, I'm hoping, Shannon is pointing something out here, that I'm hoping that I am the smaller picture and the project is the bigger. That's how it looks on my screen. That's what I'm going for, because in my view, we're here to see the project, right? We're not, I mean, I hope you're here to kind of see me and say, hey, because I love visiting with you and creating with you. But the real show is the project, not the stockist, not me. Oh, we can't see. I'm off. How's that? Better? That's better, right? Let me see. I can't remove my little picture because that's where the microphone is. I wonder if, I don't know, is that any better? Okay, I hope you can see it now. On my screen, it shows me as little, and the project is in the larger screen. I wish it could spread out, but let's see. There's that, but can you hear me now when I do that? Oh, I see, the black stripes. Oh, you guys, I don't know, technology and I are getting to know one another better. Okay, Shannon says, the sound is great. Is the picture any better? I don't know how to get rid of those black lines on the side, but if I have just the project, I'm hoping it's bigger and that you can see it better. And I'm hoping that you can see that even on these tricky surfaces, we just have to hang in there with it. Don't let that paper shift around too much so I can get it lined up with the lines of the other. Karen Berg, you made this look easy. You showed us your finished product. So I admire you even more now that I see how much futzing goes into getting this on here the right way. We just keep fiddling with the transfer and getting it on where we want it, rubbing. Let me see what we've got. That's looking good, right? I think that is looking pretty good. Stay closer to the orange pumpkin. There we go. It's coming on. It's coming on there, right? Now I'm going to line this up right here and line it up right there. Match those lines together and keep on doing this till we get this whole thing transferred onto this painted pumpkin. The end result is going to be worth this effort. I know. It's just such a beautiful design. And it fits beautifully on this medium, I don't know, it's kind of a medium-sized pumpkin. Getting all the dots off in this little bud. My hand is getting a workout, both of them, from holding the pumpkin and the transfer on it. And just matching things up and rubbing it on. I see a little piece that didn't come off over here. There we have that. So it's looking good, right? That is looking pretty darn good. I don't know. Let's see. We have another piece of flour that I think, I don't know if I'm going to use that one. What I do want to use on it, though, is the part we cut off to have some streaming out of here. So we're going to do a little bit more over here with this one. And where that's not lined up exactly, I hope that y'all realize it is perfectly fine and encouraged to, take a black paint pen and fill in a little bit of detail. As you look at these designs, they look beautiful and complicated, but when you break them down, they really just are, lines and shapes, right? So we have a lot of lines that are making the shapes. We can put in some black lines there to bring it up to the pumpkin stem and make it fit even better. So what time it is getting to be later than I think, right? I always think I can do a lot more in a live than I end up having time for, but this one is trickier than I anticipated, but I think it's coming out beautifully. We're getting these lines off the transfer grid, off the paper and onto the pumpkin. I think the black onto this off-white pumpkin is stunning. And when we add just a little bit of color with some watercolor later, I want it to be, kind of subtle color, not steal the show from the beautiful line drawings, but a little bit of color on my pumpkin is what I'm going to go for here. So flipping it again, working with the shape of the pumpkin, going into the grooves. This is a time when groovy is not that great. This is a groovy kind of pumpkin, but it's difficult groovy. but worth it groovy. So keep on working it. Just a reminder again, I am Liz from Liza Jane Designs in Afton, Minnesota. If you are in this area, I hope you'll visit me. I'm a stockist in the St. Croix River Valley, just east of the Twin Cities. If I am not your stockist and you need to find one, we very much think it's good for you to have a stockist close to you or a stockist who you feel like you can approach and talk to and learn from. Ideally close to you, but you know, we're not everywhere. So find someone close to you or that their teaching style maybe appeals to you. You can go on the stockist locator on ironorchiddesigns.com and search geographically. Many of us ship, so if you don't have someone in your local commuting area, I mean, I think it's worth a day trip to go find a stockist in person. But that isn't always practical. So, you know, find a stockist, see if he or she, most of us are she's, but see if they ship. I think that's just looking gorgeous. I am going to add some lines in here with see if I have a black acrylic paint pen, because that would be the best. You could use like a Sharpie marker too. I have a Sharpie, so we might have to try out a Sharpie. I also have acrylic paint pens. This is a archival ink pen. Let me see on paper if that one is working. No, not really. Of course, not working. We'll try the Sharpie. Sharpie's working. It's on the slippery. Oh, maybe this other pen will work on the, I was using it on the slippery side of that paper. I think the Sharpie line is pretty good. And I'm just going to add more of what I see here. So I'm going to finish off these lines, put in some squiggles, have some lines coming off here. We have these little circles and stems and coming like so, and just right up to, now it goes right up to the stem. I don't have a blank space there. So the Sharpie is working very well. And I think I'm right here and I can't see the difference between the transfer and the Sharpie line. So I'm just going to kind of do that a little bit more, because that's the way I roll. If one is good, 6 is better. And maybe just bring this flower to there too. And I'm going to draw on another petal just to round that out. Look at that, right? What time are we getting to be? Anybody know the time? Thank you, Sonia. And yes, Shannon, you're right. The hands do kind of cramp up a bit, but when you get this result, it is just so totally worth it. I'm going to see if my 33 minutes. Thank you, Shannon. I can always count on Shannon. Shannon, 2 thumbs up for you. Let's move on to, this guy's not quite dry. Do I have a heat gun here to dry him? Well, if I don't, we'll just talk about what we're going to do. So other things that I think are gorgeous on these pumpkins, they kind of have a rustic, rough feel. I'll show you some of the transfers that I picked out that are going to need also the same kind of bending and futzing, but this transfer I think will be gorgeous on this piece when it is thoroughly dry. These are leftover pieces from, this one is from Floral Anthology. There we go, Floral Anthology. Just, I have used it on other projects. So these small crafts of, you know, creating pumpkins, creating trays, doing those kinds of smaller projects, wonderful way to use up bits of transfer. I'm going to check the blue pumpkin and see. I think he tipped onto the ground here. Let's find where the blue pumpkin rolled to. Oh, guys, my blue pumpkin popped right off the table. I'm going to think it's dry, and we're going to have to put on a second coat. And I pulled out the rose paint inlay. So this is ready to go. If I can find, oh, the blue pumpkin fell behind. Picking him up. He's dry. Found him. So we're going to put a second coat of paint onto the blue pumpkin, and we're going to start using some of this rose chintz design on that pumpkin. Back into my light blue, beautiful paint. And now we're going to apply a second coat. And while that coat is wet, I'm going to lay some of the rose chintz scissors. When you cover your work surface to protect it, and I cover my work surface to protect it, I end up losing all my tools. But here we are. We're going to cut some of this rose chintz away. This is the first use for this. I have some pieces that I've used before, and I'm going to try those later to get a more faded look on my pumpkins. But right now, this is brand new, out of the package. First use of this inlay. I'm cutting it into smaller pieces so I can lay it on to the wet paint. Probably just make sure I've got enough area really painted here and wet. And I've got this kind of larger piece, and I'm going to lay it up again close to the stem and press it down. Right now, I'm just pressing down with my fingers. Try not to get paint on the back of the paper. So there is that. Whoops, I did get some on the back. That might make it a little bit harder to pull up later, but I'm going to keep applying the paint inlay before I spritz with water. And I'm going on this pumpkin just for the inlays, I think, at least for now. I'm just going around the top. I'm going to tear this so that I can get close to that pumpkin stem again and place that. Make sure it's got good contact with the wet paint. And just pressing that into the wet paint surface. This guide has nothing printed on it. I'm going to cut that away or tear it so that I can get in there and get that wet on that piece. And come down more on this side with some more of the inlay. I went to Target and bought up, I think, almost all of the pumpkins that they had. These pumpkins came in kind of the kids' art area. But I know there are so many places to get raw material. Other places include, go to thrift shops and get old decor pumpkins and repurpose them into new ones. This guy has that straight edge. Because I'm not putting it against a straight edge, I'm gonna futz around with it a little bit and make it look more like a bud. I don't know, did you see that? So it's not a flat, straight edge. And I'm gonna place him here. So I think there's a lot of creative choices in composition as you decide how you want your rose chintz to lay on your pumpkin. Just make sure that you're getting it pushed into the wet paint so it can activate. I think down here I need a little bit more paint under that leaf. Just going to put some on here. And we've got, I think these are sweet on this blue. So I'm happy accident that the green paint wouldn't open. I think that's going to be just charming. I have a spray bottle. I used it once, so I know it's here. I'm going to spritz. I don't want to soak it, but I'm spritzing the paper to activate that paint that's on there. My hands are icky, so I'm going to use this rag, which looks dirty, but trust me, it really is laundered and clean. And we're just going to press. Now that I've wet that paper, we're going to press those in. Make sure it's just making good contact. That is the important thing with the paint inlays, is that your painted surface is wet. When you spritz, it just helps it to stick down. This rose chintz I love because you can expand its coverage area. It's a beautiful design right out of the package, but it also just lends itself to you building a composition that you like on whatever surface you're going to put it on. So there's that guy ready to set aside and ready for the next step, right? This is drier, but maybe not dry enough. So we'll just use this time. Do you have to spritz? You don't have to spritz. You have to get it wet. So other ways, if you don't have a spritzer, or you could just use a paintbrush, right? And I've got a jar of water over here. I just put water on this brush so you can get it wet that way. You do have to get it wet. So if that's your question, the answer is yes. Do you have to get it wet with a spritz bottle? No, but you don't want to flood it. You want it wet. Helps it to stick. It helps release the paint on I think of it as like parchment paper. So it helps release the paint from there to get it onto your project. I am not going to be able to do much with this today because I don't have my dryer here. We're starting to run out of time, but I said pumpkin 3 ways, right? Way 1 is to use the inlays over a sweet or not so sweet, whatever color you want and whatever inlay you want. I think the toile, the petite parasols would be lovely. Part of La Chasse or La Chase would be lovely on an off-white pumpkin. So you know, I'm doing this sweet cottage core kind of style with the pale pink or pale blue and the rose chintz. You could do a boho pumpkin using the Morocco inlay, or the paradise. Just put some birds on an off-white or on a bright corally orange or something. I think that would be lovely. So this pumpkin, eventually, when it dries, I'm going to use some of Lexi Grenzer's Whispering Willow. This just smacks of fall for me. So I'm going to use that on that last pumpkin, probably using some of this beautiful watercolor. I don't even know what that is, but they're just gorgeous, sweet flowers. Does anybody know what those are? The raspberries are sweet. I don't know that I'll put birds or animals, but that is definitely an option. Mushrooms are kind of fun. I love the soft colors in this that I think will be beautiful. It'll just bring out some color on this off-white pumpkin. So Lexi's Whispering Willow is going to be transferred onto, yeah, that's a great idea. I love how our viewers help each other out. Shannon is suggesting practicing on, practice on a dollar store pumpkin, a Dollar Tree pumpkin. Practice on a small wood tag. It's intimidating because it's new, but once you try the paint inlays, you'll see that they're super simple to use. We're just going to let this dry. I'm going to peek a little bit and see what's happening and show you it's starting to transfer. Because I'm using a true chalk style paint without, what's my word? Yes, wood tags would be really pretty, I think, and approachable, not scary. The inlays, yeah, no rubbing. You attach to wet paint, spritz it, or pat water on so that the paint is activated and starts to release. When it dries, and I can let it dry thoroughly on this chalky paint, I could leave it till tomorrow and come back and spritz with water again. You see that it's starting to come off, but it's not really releasing all of it yet. So I'm going to let that dry. I will post some pictures in the tribe of this finished product or project when I get the paint inlays off. And of the other, my third way of the pumpkins 3 ways, you'll see this guy finished with Whispering Willow. That'll be there too. Before we go away today, if I can find where I put my watercolor paints, I would like to at least try a little bit of adding some color to this first pumpkin that we worked on. Although it's lovely, just black and white too. I don't know. What do you guys think? Kathy, Shannon, should we leave it just black and white? Should we add a tiny bit of watercolor to it? It was my original plan. Do we stick with our original plans? Do we go with our guts? I have a little tray of some watercolor. Pretty with a little watercolor. Okay, Shannon, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to take this color, which is pretty intense. So I'm going to put it on my little acetate sheet. And I'm going to add some more water to that and make it a soft pink. I'm going to use a little brush. How about this one? Let's try that. And just, oh yeah, just putting some pretty color. What I love to do with watercolor is lay colors right on the piece. So I'm going to get some yellow and put that here and do the same again and like water it down a lot so it's a pale yellow. They're mixing together on the palette, but I'm going to dot a little next to the pink that I laid down. The challenge for me with watercolor is to lay it down and leave it alone. It's a good medium for me to use. Again, realizing that I don't control the universe. This can and should work on its own. My colors are mixing, so I'm going to come over here. It's a little slightly different pink. And just gently dot these into the areas of the petals, right? And if I think it's too dark, I can get water and just dot. The paint's going to travel where you have water. Gravity might pull it down the side of this pumpkin too, but just be judicious with your use of water on the curved surface, or tip it so you don't have too much dripping down if you don't want it to. That can be a pretty look too. I sometimes like the drippage, but here's what we're getting with a little bit of watercolor. I'm gonna take my light pink again, and I'm gonna tilt the pumpkin so the paint doesn't all run down that side. Not too much water. With watercolor paint, you can, let this dry and then intensify the color by adding a tiny bit more later. I like to dot in the different colors so they mix and it gets a little more complex, right? Get a nice variety of colors in here. I love Winter Song Wreath. So there we go. Very quick. The challenge is don't overwork it. Let the paint move around, let it dry, and if you're happy, then leave it. If you think it needs some extra color, add some. And you can roll this around, pay attention and gently guide. Don't force the color just into different areas. Sometimes I like to go dot, dot, and let those spread out. So that's what we have for watercolor on the chalky thing, the chalky base, because the transfers only transfer the lines. This doesn't get plasticky. It stays whatever is underneath it. And I think that's gorgeous. I probably will, when that dries, add a little bit to maybe make it more golden. And just because it's fall, right? I like that golden glow of fall. I got to stop now. I'm starting to impose my will on the watercolor. I don't want to do that. I want the watercolor to do what it wants to do. So I'm going to end this video. I don't even know. Shannon, you're watching the clock for me. It's 11:54. All money IOD. Yes, I save all my money. This is how I got to be a stockist, is I love IOD so much. I had to have it all and use it all the time. I love the company. I love the products. I love our values. I love that we share our love of creativity with each other. And it's like, it's not a competition. It's a collaboration, and we all just learn more and more. So find your local stockist or someone who can ship things to you. You know, watch a lot of stockists, see who's got the style that you can learn from. We're all kind of different, and I like learning from different people and different. There, I'm back right here. So you see the pumpkin's done. Yes, Shannon, I love the community of people I've met too. Mindy, thank you for blowing on my wet paint. That's going to help, I think. It's going to keep it from dripping where it's not supposed to go, right? That's very thoughtful of you. I'm going to sign off. While we let the rest of these things dry and set up, I will get back to you via the IOD Creative Tribe. If you're not a member of that, just search for it on Facebook and become a member. I think there's somewhere like 48,000 people, mostly women from all over the world, who just share their creativity with each other. So yes, become a member of the tribe. You'll be endlessly inspired. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to sign off, and I'll be back in a couple of weeks on Wednesday. Thanks for joining. Liza Jane Designs, Afton, Minnesota. We'll catch you with a groovy video next time. Bye now.